Hi everyone, I'm just back to doing a standard voiceover. If you have read my YouTube posts or kept up with me on Instagram, my life has just kind of been really stressful, and when I'm really stressed, I just don't really feel like talking, so I just decided that it'd probably be easier for me to just film putting my makeup on and then voice over it later. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm just using my usual under eye corrector from Rare Beauty. It's just been one of my favorites this year. I don't know if I'm gonna have a favorites of this year video up. I definitely was going to, but I ended up not knowing if it would be even worth doing if there was no b-roll, and I definitely don't have time for b-roll, so I don't know. This foundation, I got it when it was half off. I'm sure if you guys are big fans of makeup, you heard the buzz about all of the Tom Ford foundations being $45. So back when I tried a sample packet of this, 0.3 was like my perfect match. So when it did finally go half off, I bought both the liquid and the stick in 0.3, and unfortunately, as you could probably tell, it's suddenly too dark. So I don't know what's going on with that. So I'm going to use the MAC face pen in areas of my face where I want to add volume and brightness, and I'm just going to use that to fix the foundation stick that I laid down earlier. And I'm also going to kind of use it like a higher coverage concealer in places where I think I need a little bit more coverage too, since this MAC product does have quite a bit of coverage, which is nice. I am using a brand new pink beauty blender. I had a stock from when I got them half off from an Ulta 21 Days of Beauty back in the day, and I just felt like using one. I've been using my Paw Paw sponge for a while, but I guess I just kind of felt like something different for a change. Personally, I think the Paw Paw sponge is honestly better than the Beauty Blender. I don't know why, but I feel like Beauty Blenders back in like 2019 were so much better quality than they are now, but maybe that's just me. I'm gonna put on some concealer really quickly. As you can see, I have not filmed ever since I got back from Las Vegas, so it has probably been 2 weeks since I had last filmed, and I basically have forgotten how to put on makeup. It's just been such an erratic end of the year, not a good time, so if my under eyes are still popping through, then you'll have to excuse that. I don't know. I wish I could have filmed more often. As usual, I had so many grand plans and they all got ruined by something again. I feel like this is a recurring pattern. This is like the second or third time this has happened to me at the end of the year. Something always happens at the end of the year. Love it for me. So today I'm using the Precisely My Brow, and the only reason that I'm using it is because when I was filming this, I actually forgot to completely unpack my makeup from Las Vegas, so I was just using what was available that I hadn't packed and brought with me, and this was one of those. I did used to really like this brow pencil, but I have since been converted to the S-Bar Brow Balance. That's what happened. And then I'm just going to use my brow flick as usual to fix things. This is my second one this year, I believe, and once I run out of this, I will be buying it again, and hopefully Glossier never discontinues it, but having said that, I have a feeling that they will. But I will probably buy 2 or 3 at a time next time, just to make sure that if they do discontinue it, I have plenty. I'm using the Pat McGrath under eye powder. My powder collection, for someone with dry skin, my powder collection is embarrassingly large, so I feel like you guys probably haven't seen me use this in a while, but it is quite nice. I do like it. As you can see, I do use it on more spots on my face than just my under eyes, because I might as well. Today I am using the Sinful Echoes debut and currently only eyeshadow palette that they offer in their range. At the time of me filming this, it has been sold out on their Etsy storefront for quite some time, but that's okay, it will come back. This isn't limited or anything like that. You just gotta wait, you know, small business and stuff like that. Restocks can take a while. Mine arrived safe and sound. One of the shades, I don't think it's visible on the camera just because it's pretty shallow and it's not like a big deal or anything, but one of my shades arrived with a crack through it. Again, it didn't make it fall out of the pan. It didn't make it fragile. It performs just fine. Just kind of something I guess I was just gonna let you guys know. So the shades do seem quite soft. I do think the mattes are workable. As you can see, they apply nicely and they are very pretty, But I found on my dry eyelids, I had trouble getting them to look super, super opaque. And I felt like I had trouble blending them without the help of another shade, which I did talk in the end of the video when I was just wrapping things up, and you'll hear me mention that again, so I won't harp on it too much now, or else I'll just be repeating myself. But as you can see, in order for me to get the blend I wanted, I did go into a lighter shade. This is a really, really pretty gray. I do really like that it's kind of like just a very, very desaturated red. It definitely feels like a kind of color you would just see organically out in nature, especially if you live in an area with lots of rocks or like lots of clay in the soil. So I did really like that. Something about the colors in this palette feel very organic, very natural, in the sense that these are colors you would see outside in nature, and I really, really liked it. It just made the whole palette feel, the pun is so unintentional and it's so cringe, but it just made the palette feel grounded. That's really the only word I have to say for it. It's so pretty. Definitely does have some grunge influence, of course. Sinful echoes. You know, it's in the name, it's in the logo. Very, very beautiful. Very witchy almost. I really like everything about this eyeshadow palette, conceptually speaking. The concept is super, super solid. But I do think that the mattes are not the best matte formula I've ever worked with in the history of indie eyeshadows. That honor goes to other brands in my collection, but for a first palette, it's really, really nice. And I don't really have much to complain. I think if you have oilier eyelids and you use a more mattifying, smoothing eye primer, you will find this palette to be much easier to work with. But for me and my dry eyelids, because I always have to make my eyelids super hydrated before I put eyeshadow on, any mattes that are not super, super blendable will tend to stick and not be super easy for me to move around in terms of, you know, blending, shifting the pigment. It's a little difficult for me to do that, but I feel like that's more of a dry eyelid thing than the indie formula. But I do know that there are formulas out there like NATASHA DENONA where I don't have that problem most of the time anyways. So I won't ramble on that for too much longer. As you can see, I am using mostly the reds, the burgundies in this palette for this look in terms of the mattes. I do want to play with the other shades eventually. I initially was going to debut this palette on my channel as a 3 looks 1 palette. It was not going to just be one look, but I don't have, if I were to try and force myself to not show this palette until I did 3 looks with it, I don't know when you'd see this. So I wanted to at least show something with it because they are such a small brand, and I wanted to support them and show my love for them and just show them off to you guys. As you can see, this is definitely my favorite shade in the palette. It is such a beautiful topper. I meant to put it on much more sheer, but as you can see, I definitely put on a little bit more than I intended, but that's okay. On top of the red, it is so, so beautiful. I do think that this shade was kind of more intended to be used with the greens, but you can use any of the shades in any order you want. I did notice that there were 2 textures in this palette as far as the shimmers went. The first texture is that super ultra sparkly shade that you just saw me lay down, the duochrome one. Definitely my favorite kind of finish, so pretty. But then the other 3 shades in the palette seem to be so much more smooth, almost satin-like, and I can't really say I'm the biggest fan of those, but you know, it's okay. So I tried using this duochrome on my lower lash line thinking it would be really great because I was thinking it might be a little bit shinier, so this could be like the more subdued shimmer to put on my lower lash line, but it didn't really work. Honestly, it barely really read as a shimmer. I definitely need to test using this eyeshadow on my upper eyelid and see what it looks like there, but on the lower lash line it wasn't doing it for me, so I switched back to just using the other shade, and you can see that popped way more. So I will of course continue to fiddle around with this palette. If I have time, I would definitely like to do an additional 2 looks in one video, but you know, we'll see what I can churn out. I am going to use the same shade on my inner corner, on the inner corner of my lower lash line. I do that a lot just to make sure that my eye look is a little bit unified. I wanted to apply some kind of red eyeliner, but in all honesty, this shade of the Kajal InkArtist is actually lighter in value than the darkest matte that I used. So it actually kind of looks a little bit strange being put right next to the dark plum that I had used earlier closest to my lash line, because that shade eyeshadow is darker than this eyeliner. You can definitely see that effect happening in this eye. You can see how the Azuki Red is lighter than the actual eyeshadow, so kind of throws everything off, but it looks okay enough that I'll allow it. It looks a little bit strange right now, but once I put on the mascara, it will look a little bit better. And then I just finished it off with some inner corner liner on the lower inner corner area. I do that a lot as well. So that is the eye look so far. I put on my lashes off camera. I did not use any false lashes this time, just purely out of laziness. I used the Etude House Mascara Fixer. This is the 2023 renewal, and then I used the MACStack Mascara on top. However, as you will see throughout this video, I don't think I let the mascara fixer fully dry, because my eyelashes actually slowly started drooping for the rest of this video, which is super awkward. But onto the blush. So as you can see here, this Chanel blush actually acted like it was a really crappy blush, because I didn't realize until I was already working on putting it on. I totally forgot to put setting powder on my cheeks, and this Chanel blush looks and blends its best when it's put down on top of a set base. So if you use this Chanel blush on top of a totally tacky foundation only no setting powder base, it will stick and require a little bit more legwork to blend. So you can see here I'm using a setting powder to soften out those edges and get it to look more blended. So that was my bad. The Chanel blush is very, very beautiful. I think I have other videos where I used it and it was so much easier to use. But if I use it before I set my face, then it's going to be a little bit sticky, which is a very common thing to happen with powder cheek products. You are technically supposed to set your face before you put on powder cheek products. Sometimes with my skin being so dry and with my preference for using Asian blushes, I will use my Asian blushes as setting powder, and that works, especially for products like from Flower Nose and Kaleidos. It works just fine, but not so much for the Chanel. So that was my bad. For my highlighter, I'm just using a highlighter from the My Dream Cheek Trio, which I hadn't used in a really long time, despite loving it so much. I've not used it in forever, which story of my life, right? And so what happens when you have so much makeup? Of course, it's fine, whatever. So I'm just using the powder highlighter today, and then to top off places like my nose, and then to just add like an extra little bit of brightness to my cheeks, I'm using the Rare Beauty highlighter, which looks barely used because I use so little every single time I use it. It is just so bright. I cannot use any more than the tiniest little like molecule of product, or else it just looks crazy on me. So you can see just with that little amount, it is so bright. And I also did put just a tiny touch on my inner corners. I felt like my inner corners just looked so dull without it. Lastly, moving on to the lips, we're almost done, I promise. So I'm just going to be putting on some lip liner. I'm just going to call that done. You can't get this product from BUXOM anymore, which is a really big fat shame because it's so good, and the replacement, the Powerline lip liner or whatever it's called, sucks. I hated it and I got rid of it. So I don't have that anymore. But that is the lip liner. Yeah, I know. And then moving on to the lips, I just procured the newest Roman collection of Glasting Water Tints, and I also, my new arrival of their new Glasting Glosses just arrived at the time that I'm voicing this over. I will be hoping to do a video covering those. But this new collection, I have everything except the mauve shade, which had sold out when I got this. And I actually am kind of let down by the darkest shades in this new shade extension, because you can kind of tell with the application here, it's a little bit streaky. And so I was just, a little bit tiny let down. So this is about just going to wrap up the voiceover portion. I'm going to move into the portion where I'm talking. So yeah. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys don't mind the voiceover. This is going to be my finished look. Now, as you can see, my lashes did drop a little bit, so I'm going to perk them up really quick because I do want to film one more video after this. So I'm going to use the Philly Millie Heated Eyelash Curler. And I'm just going to use this to push my lashes up a little bit. Sometimes I do have to do this after I put mascara on. I know it's not always recommended, but just wait till the mascara is completely dry, and then you'll be fine. This is one look using quite a few of the shades inside the palette. I will try to add to my list to make a green focus look using Sinful Echoes later, but for the time being, I do think this look is very beautiful. I found the mattes to be, the dark mattes were a little bit finicky in terms of getting a smooth blend. I was really depending on the lighter shades to get an even blend with those, which then has the side effect of lightening the shade, so I can't get quite like perfect depth. That plus my dry eyelids means that I wasn't able to get the shades to look as opaque and as dark as I wanted, but as you can see, this gold green topper on top of the red really transformed everything, really, really beautiful. So I'm very interested to see how this shade looks on top of the green shadows, which is kind of how it looks like it was intended to be used according to the palette placement. But all that being said, that is going to be it for this video. So if you have any questions about any of the products I used, feel free to let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Bye bye.